life, and it also knocked out the power. So we had to call the power company. About an hour later, they got us back on the air after removing the varmint from the top of the pole. So we've had some wildlife experiences out here, no doubt, over the years. I'm sure there's plenty of others that I don't even know about.
It doesn't just look like a barn at times. At times, it very well could be.
That was Larry and this WHOW 75th anniversary feature.
News time is 10 minutes after 7 o'clock here on this Friday morning. Top of the morning from the newsroom of Regional Radio and DeWittDailyNews.com. I'm Seth Lawrence with this expanded local newscast. It's brought to you by Baum Chevrolet Buick in Clinton, your Silverado headquarters, and the morning show streams to Facebook and YouTube. Brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin insurance agent in Clinton. The Bloomington Area Career Center will expand its offerings. Clinton School Superintendent Kurt Nettles says the new HEAT program will give students even more opportunities that are already a great resource to Clinton students.
So Bloomington Area Career Center has existed for quite some time. I can't remember how many years it's been in place. When I became a superintendent in this region, ROE 17, back in 07, the school district I was at, those kids belonged to BACC. Here at Clinton, the southern tip of ROE 17, our high school kids have the opportunity to go to BACC also. And that's all vocational classes. A few years ago, there was discussion about starting up another program called HEAT Academy, HEAT. So health related studies, engineering, agriculture, and technology. So you have the acronym HEAT. These would be programs kids could get into that are not taught. Just as an aside, when I became a teacher, I have a degree in history and government, and I really loved history and government. That's really what I wanted to teach. But back in those days, people got on those jobs and sat in them forever, and those were never open.
Okay.
I had enough hours at Eastern that they put on my teaching license I could do English. Okay. I was not an English teacher. But when I got hired, they found out I knew a little bit about baseball and stuff, so or basketball. So they said, well, we're going to hire this guy because he can help us coach. Oh, and by the way, we need you to teach English. I was not a good English teacher, but the state said I could do it. That doesn't mean I'm good at it. I really didn't study it that hard. I made myself better at it for the sake of those kids.
According to Nettles, the HEAT program will bring a professional in the field of whatever the subject area may be and will lead the students. It would have several specific focuses.
The HEAT program is not classes to where you get somebody who's marginally certified to teach something. So something in one of those four areas, the ag, the tech, the engineering, we want to bring in business and industry professionals to stand before these kids and work with these kids and be the teacher who's in the field that actually does it. So we're trying to teach kids about technology, cybersecurity, how to program, how to do all kinds of things, how to market, engineering type things, ag related ththings, health. But we want to bring in like the health stuff. I think, we have John Hickman at the high school who knows a ton about biology. And a lot of people say he did a great job teaching them biology. He's no doctor. He's no nurse or anything like that. We want to get kids in health occupation type programs to where doctors coming in, nurse practitioners are coming in, people in the field. Now, it would be overseen by those who are certified by the state, so we don't get in trouble with the state. But we want to give kids opportunities to be in a classroom setting to learn directly from people who do this for a living.
This will be an extension of the Bloomington Area Career Center. Nettles notes COVID interrupted the planning of this, but he remains excited about it still. There are a few hurdles yet to clear before it becomes a reality, but Nettles believes it will be a great program once it is established. As the grilling season starts to kick into high gear, a University of Illinois Extension nutrition educator is reminding those dusting off the grill to keep food safety in mind. On the WHOW Morning Show Thursday, Caitlin Mellendorf at the University of Illinois Extension in DeWitt, Macon, and Piatt counties told Regional Radio, you want to make sure any meat you're cooking reaches its recommended internal temperature.
We have what are considered kind of higher risk groups. So young kids are considered a high-risk group. Their immune systems may not be able to fight off E. coli or salmonella or another type of foodborne illness. Seniors, their immune systems are just not as strong as they were when they were younger, so they may also have a hard time fighting off. Pregnant moms, and then any folks with chronic conditions. So maybe they have cancer and are undergoing treatment, maybe they have HIV, where their immune systems are going to have kind of struggle to fight off any type of foodborne illness. So it's really important to pull out that thermometer to make sure that we're able to test. Color is not a great indicator of temperature change. USDA has some really cool graphics that show you, I think most of them are usually steak because it has a really nice color change typically. And we can have steaks and beef that are cooked to correct temperatures, but maintain that red color. So they look to our eyes like they're more rare, but they are actually cooked. And you can have the opposite effect where you can have steaks or beef that are not cooked to temperature, but the color change has happened. They've gone from red to brown, but they're not technically at the internal temperature yet.
According to Mellendorf, you want to make sure you keep different types of meat separate on the grill. It can be easy to just throw them on top of one another, but that is not necessarily a safe practice.
We do want to be aware of that cross-contamination. So if you do have one grill that is cooking burgers alongside chicken, alongside maybe steak, you may want to consider separate utensils for all of those. So if you're planning to flip your burgers, have one dedicated utensil just for the burgers. And if you're going to flip your chicken, have one dedicated utensil just for your chicken. So that way we're not worried about cross-contamination. Also that you're not then mixing flavors. So if you've got a different seasoning on your chicken than you have on your burger or your steak, if you're using a similar set of tongs or a spatula to flip, we also might not want to be contaminating our flavors and, kind of moving, maybe one type of meat flavor to another. It may just be a very interesting combo of things when you're all done. But also thinking about something like chicken breast, very, very lean. And so you're not going to tend to see a lot of flare up on the grill if you are just doing something like a dry rub. But if you are marinating meats or you have meats that are already pretty high in fat, so some burgers, the recommendations I've seen are for a nice burger is usually 85% lean. So we've got a good chunk of fat in a nice burger. The fat that's going to drip off and drip down on the grill grates, and especially if you've got charcoal, you might have some flare up with anything that is kind of fatty. So you may want to do more of an off-centered cooking style. So you bring your burgers off maybe to the corner of your grill grates, and your charcoal or your heat source is kind of just off-centered a little bit. So you're getting heat, but you're not allowing the fat that's eventually going to drip off something like your burger to hit those coals or your fuel source and reflare back up. And then that's where you get all the charring that we do enjoy, but not like completely charred, right? So consider that off-center cooking style.
According to Mellendorf, the public, she directs the public to their revamped website. It's extension.illinois.edu/foods. She says there are many resources there for helpful cooking safety information as well as recipes. A Central Illinois lawmaker wonders where Springfield's priorities are as the spring legislative session has brought forward some interesting bills. State Senator Sally Turner says bills dealing with pets in your lap while you drive or the spice level of foods served in school cafeterias are getting passed this legislative cycle.
I thought I'd tell you something silly, some silly things that we did see that are of no importance whatsoever. And those things see a committee hearing, which are, okay, here's one. It's illegal for a person to hold an animal on their lap while driving.
Yeah.
A banning of single-use plastic bags. Really? I mean, you could do that in your own community if you wanted to, so that people pay the 1 cent tax or whatever it is, like they do in Chicago. No, they have to go ahead and decide to try and ban that. Here's one. How about this bill would set limits on how spicy food is served in schools? Well, it doesn't even make any sense. And then there was one that actually passed from the Senate the other day, and that was bears people can't have interaction with primates or bears. Okay, where did that come from? So I guess it has something to do with that people can spread germs to primates. Like if you're in a zoo and they have like a monkey that's like hanging out and you could pet it, but who's gonna go try and pet the bear? Those types of things, you just want to shake your head and go, why? All the problems that we have, why are those things so important? Well, they're important because someone's constituent from some area brought that forward and said, this is really important to me. I really wish you'd get this through. And they do.
The Lincoln Republican is part of a committee to help solve the child care desert issue in Illinois and is pleased there's a lot of movement on that issue, but says anything Republicans offer for stricter penalties of various crimes goes nowhere.
Child care tax credits. We've pushed that. We have a new early childhood program, and I'm on that committee. And one of the things that we're honing in on are child care deserts, which we have a lot of those in Central Illinois. You know, anybody that's got kids knows it's difficult to find child care, whether it's in home or in a facility. That's very difficult, and we are very hopeful that some of the program gets focused on that. So childcare is a big thing on our mind. There is no movement on anything that has to do with incarcerating an individual for anything. None. That won't even come out of into a committee. The one I had most recently was for a person that was found to have a drug or a substance that contained any hint of fentanyl. That was going to be a new crime, but that didn't even see the light of day. So we'll see nothing that has to do with new penalties for anything.
Senator Turner has also been active in trying to push forward bills that deal with the fentanyl crisis that is ongoing in Illinois. There are some things that are going well in that effort, but there are others that are gaining no traction.
I right now am with Leader McCombie she's the minority leader in the House. We both together have a fentanyl bill, which is a fentanyl strip bill. And what that does is it is a strip. I don't know how to explain it. It's a strip of a testing strip that you can test for the presence of fentanyl, and county health departments would have that free of charge, and then pharmacists can have that there at their facilities, and you'd have to pay for it in a facility, but at a public health department it would be free. But people can test to make sure that the poison isn't in whatever it is that they may be concerned about, from Halloween candy to maybe some drug that they have or they got from somewhere else. The whole idea is that fentanyl is a poison and it's killing people. And so that's one of the things that we have that has bipartisan support. It's just about saving lives, and fentanyl's taking too many lives. And of course, the opioid epidemic needs to be addressed overall, but that's just something to single out fentanyl. And so that's one thing that we're very focused on, and that I and Leader McCombie are focused on.
Republicans are also trying to get a sales tax exemption for groceries for Illinoisans, as well as rebates from Ameren because of energy bills that are going up. News time is 23 minutes after the hour on this Friday. Plenty more to get to coming your way on the WHOW Morning Show.
If you think a new or used car is in your future, the time is now to call the Baum Chevrolet Buick sales team here in Clinton or Farmer City. This is Scott Baum. With a professional sales consultant in your corner, the vehicle search is easy. Meet with our sales team to go over your wants and needs. We'll start the search and do all the legwork for you. With so many models and options to choose from, we can help you get the information you need. BaumChevyBuick.com. Right from the start.
News time is 23 minutes after 7 o'clock here on this Friday morning. Again, I'm Seth Lawrence with you folks today for this expanded local newscast. The issue of food deserts or lack of access to grocery stores or supermarkets continues to be an issue in many rural areas, but there is some federal assistance available to help with the problem. Farah Ahmad serves as the USDA Undersecretary for Rural Development.
We have recognize that as a major challenge in rural communities that we work, and it's a really important one to keep families healthy and to provide that access to quality foods and local and regional foods, right, where we can touch into local and regional markets as another piece of economic development and job growth. We have a program at USDA Rural Development called the Healthy Food Financing Initiative, and it actually can go to supermarkets, local grocers, to farmers markets to actually bring access to healthy foods. It's generally been a loan program, but we're looking to expand that program later this year and put more funds into it so we can have a further reach for that program.
For more information, visit rd.usda.gov, then search Healthy Food Financing Initiative. Governor J.B. Pritzker is signing a new law to protect the state's healthcare workforce as the pandemic emergency officially ends next month. The bill was sponsored by Representative Bob Morgan of Deerfield, who wants to ensure temporary healthcare professionals can stay on the job.
As we all know, there's a shortage of healthcare workers in our hospitals and our doctors' offices, primarily nurses. So this addresses a big chunk of that by making sure temporary nurses who began working in Illinois under temporary licenses over the last few years during the COVID pandemic will continue to practice in Illinois.
These workers will be able to obtain full licensure as well. Morgan says the law also allows for continued access to flu and COVID testing and vaccination at local pharmacies.
It also addresses a number of issues dealing with pharmacy and the ability to get flu shots and COVID shots and vaccines and treatment.
The new law takes effect immediately. State lawmakers are working on legislation to further address the teacher shortage in Illinois. The problem is serious, especially in hard-to-staff areas, say supporters. A bill from Senator Meg Laughlin Capel of Shorewood extends the number of days that substitute teachers filling an emergency vacancy can work in the classroom.
Providing this compensation to educators who continuously work to uplift and guide newer teachers will encourage them to stay in the profession, benefiting our students the most.
A measure from Metro East Area Senator Christopher Belt provides retention bonuses to of $4,000 per year for 2 consecutive years to teachers employed in hard-to-staff areas.
The fact is, Illinois is facing a crisis when it comes to recruiting and retaining qualified teachers, especially in underserved communities. This shortage is having a profound impact on the education of our children.
Another provides monetary incentives for teachers who mentor to newer colleagues. Ambulance drivers would get more training about the use of lights and sirens under a bill making headway in the General Assembly. The bill is sponsored by Senator Adrian Johnson of Buffalo Grove and requires the extra training as well as using both lights and sirens when an ambulance passes through an intersection. It was prompted by the death of a North Chicago man last year.
Donald Stallworth III's life was tragically taken in Waukegan when his motorcycle collided with an ambulance that was transporting a patient. While ambulance lights were on, the siren was not in use as it went through the stop sign.
Stallworth was riding his motorcycle in Waukegan last year when he was struck and killed by an ambulance transporting a patient. His mother, Satrice Stallworth.
It's so important for this law to pass because we don't want to see another family hurt and go through the pain of losing a loved one, especially parents losing their children.
The legislation has passed the Senate and now awaits a vote in the House. April is Child Abuse Awareness Month, and there's a growing need for child advocates. A child advocate works with a nonprofit agency in concert with law enforcement to act as an advocate for children caught in the middle of abuse investigations. Rosa Rushing is a child advocate with Braveheart Children's Advocacy Center in Central Illinois and says part of the challenge in recruiting new child advocates is the emotional toll of the job. Many victims don't want to tell their stories.
It's certainly a bittersweet experience. When I used to work investigations, I never believed it when the forensic interviewer would tell me that the child never wanted to leave after meeting with the interviewer. And now that I'm in that position, I have really experienced it. I've had a child tell me, I don't want to leave. And it's been more than one. So again, it's a very bittersweet experience. However, I think that the most important thing is that were there for the children, whether they have a disclosure or not.
Braveheart also expanded services through 3 central Illinois counties, while similar nonprofit CACs are also struggling to recruit advocates across the state as well. Coverage of news is brought to you by Baum Chevrolet Buick in Clinton, your Silverado headquarters. The morning show streams to Facebook and YouTube, brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. Sports is next.
With SRN News, I'm Rich Thomason. The U.S. military is investigating a deadly training exercise accident in Alaska. The mid-air collision and subsequent crash of 2 Apache helicopters have left 3 soldiers dead, 1 injured. Russia is targeting the Ukrainian capital Kiev with at least 20 cruise missiles, along with a couple of drones. Central Ukraine also hit, with deaths reported in an attack on a residential building. Eyewitnesses report heavy explosions and gunfire in Sudan's capital, Khartoum. This despite a ceasefire as agreed to by both sides. He was there for several hours. Former Vice President Pence sat before a grand jury investigating the events that led up to the 2020 riot at the U.S. Capitol. Watching Wall Street, the Dow futures down 116 points. NASDAQ futures off 43. More details, srnnews.com.
Time now for a look at sports. I'm Seth Lawrence with this report. In a game heard on WEZC and online at DeWittDailyNews.com, Luke Teschke hit a game-ending 2-run home run and pitched 5 innings of 1-run ball as Monticello 10-runned Bloomington Central Catholic 11-1 in 5 innings Thursday from Monticello High School in Illini Prairie Conference baseball action. Teschke settled down after he gave up a run in the first inning, and the Sages sent 11 batters to the plate in the second to take control with a 6-run frame. Jacob Trusner finished 2 for 2 with a pair of doubles, a walk, and 3 RBIs, leading 9-1 with 1 out in the bottom of the 5th. Teschke sent a high drive over the left field fence, ending the game as the Sages went up by 10. He finished 2 for 3 at the plate with a walk. The Illinois State commit struck out 8 and retired 12 of the final 15 batters he faced. Teschke was the serve pro of Piatt-DeWitt County player of the game. Jarrett Weidewiltz was 2 for 3 with a stolen base and a run scored for BCC. Nick Martis singled in the only run for the Saints and finished 1 for 2 with a stolen base. The Saints fall to 8-8 overall and 3-4 in the Illini Prairie Conference. The Sages go to 14-4 overall and move to 6-1 in the Illini Prairie. A showdown with St. Joe Ogden is up next for Monticello on Monday. Hear the action on 95.9 FM WEZC and online at DeWittDailyNews.com starting at 4:30. The Mount Pulaski Hilltoppers mustered enough offense to withstand a late rally from Leroy in an 8-3 non-conference high school boys baseball victory Thursday afternoon in Mount Pulaski. Chance Payne paced the Hilltoppers, going 2 for 3 with a double and 3 RBIs. Clay Aylesworth, Jackson Fricky, and Landon Smith doubled for Mount Pulaski, while Evan Cooper, Liam Smith, Landon Smith, and Aylesworth drove in the other Hilltoppers runs. Landon Smith allowed a run on a hit, but walked 8 while striking out 9 in 5 2/3 innings for the win for Mount Pulaski. The Hilltoppers go to 18-2 overall. They host Cornerstone Calvary Christian Academy this afternoon in non-conference action before a noon game with Illini Bluffs on Saturday in Tomahawk Conference play. Emily York struck out 16 in a complete game shutout, leading Bloomington Central Catholic over Monticello 3-0 in Illini Prairie Conference high school girls softball action Thursday afternoon in Monticello. York permitted 3 hits and did not walk a batter. Reese Patton, Avery Schweitzer, and Lindsay Treebaum recorded the only hits for the Lady Sages. Schweitzer doubled. Reese Patton allowed 3 runs. 1 was earned over 7 innings. She walked 3 and struck out 2 while permitting 6 hits. The Lady Saints go to 13-10 overall and 6-1 In the Illini Prairie Conference, Monticello falls to 8-10 overall and 3-4 in the Illini Prairie. They return to action Monday, hosting St. Joseph Ogden. The Chicago Bears selected Tennessee offensive tackle Darnell Wright with the 10th overall pick in the NFL draft Thursday night, giving quarterback Justin Fields more protection after trading back a spot with Philadelphia. The Bears clearly had no intention of drafting Jalen Carter and allowed the Eagles to switch spots so they could take the Georgia star defensive tackle. Chicago also got a 4th-round pick in 2024. The 6'5", 330-pound Wright was the second offensive lineman drafted. Ohio State's Paris Johnson Jr. went to the Arizona Cardinals at number 6. The Tennessee Titans took Northwestern's Peter Sheronsky with the 11th pick. Wright played a big role in Tennessee, going 11-2 and finishing 6th in the AP poll. He delivered a memorable performance in containing Alabama edge rusher Will Anderson Jr. in a 52-49 win over the Crimson Tide and was a first-team All-SEC as a right tackle last season. He played left tackle in 2021. The Bears finished with the worst record in the league and set a franchise mark for losses while going 3-14 in their first season under Poles and coach Matt Eberflus. Their frustrated fans are feeling at least a little more optimistic after some big offensive moves. The Bears hired Big Ten Commissioner Kevin Warren as their new team president and closed on a 326-acre tract of land in suburban Arlington Heights, where they hoped to build an enclosed stadium. Poles pulled off a blockbuster trade for a playmaking receiver in March, acquiring DJ Moore from the quarterback-needing Carolina Panthers. The Bears moved down 8 spots and also got a haul of selections in return. Carolina, in turn, took Alabama's Bryce Young with the number 1 overall pick. Wright is the first offensive lineman drafted by the Bears in the first round since Kyle Long in 2013. He is also Poles' first opening round pick. The Bears did not have one in 2022 after former GM Ryan Pace dealt it to the New York Giants the previous year to move up for quarterback Justin Fields. Chicago's 2 most prominent additions in free agency were at linebacker, signing Buffalo 2-time Pro Bowler Tremaine Edmonds and former Eagle TJ Edwards. They still, though, have plenty of issues to address in this draft, including an edge rusher to boost a pass rush that finished in with a league-low 20 sacks, as well as a disruptor on the interior of the defensive line. They also needed to beef up the blocking to protect Fields after he was sacked 55 times and tied Denver's Russell Wilson for most in the NFL. The Bears came into the draft with 10 draft picks, including 2 second-rounders and their first pick in the 3rd round at number 64. They also have 2 picks each in the 4th, the 5th, and the 7th rounds. The Green Bay Packers' lack of pass rush depth was apparent when they struggled to get to opposing quarterbacks after Rashawn Gary tore his ACL last November, but they are confident Iowa edge rusher Luke Van Ness can help change that. Rather than getting a pass catcher for new starting quarterback Jordan Love in the opening round, the Packers selected Van Ness with the 13th overall pick in the NFL draft Thursday night. Van Ness was in Wisconsin when he got the news while watching the draft from Fontana, where his parents have a home. Green Bay began the week with the 15th overall pick in the draft, but they moved up 2 spots as part of a blockbuster trade that sent 4-time MVP quarterback Aaron Rodgers to the New York Jets. That trade also brought the Packers a 2nd-round selection and a 6th-round pick in this year's draft, plus a conditional 2024 2nd-round pick that could become a 1st-rounder if Rodgers plays 65% of the Jets' snaps this season. The Packers are sending a 5th-round pick in this year's draft to the Jets. Green Bay's pass rushing ability took a hit late last season without Gary, whose status for the start of the upcoming season still remains uncertain. Gary had 6 sacks in 9 games. Preston Smith had a team-high 8.5 sacks, and nobody else had more than 4 last season. Van Ness showed his explosiveness by getting a combined 13.5 sacks and 20 tackles for loss in 2 seasons at Iowa. He did all that without starting a single game for the Hawkeyes. Van Ness's versatility intrigued the Packers since he played both tackle and end for Iowa. GM Brian Gutekunst said the Packers could still use him as an edge rusher while also occasionally having him work inside after going 8-9 and missing the playoffs last season. To end a string of 3 straight playoff appearances, the Packers are entering a new post-Rodgers era with Love as their starting quarterback. But Love could use some weapons. Christian Watson and Romeo Dubes are the only Packers wideouts under contract who had at least 100 yards receiving in 2022. Josiah DeGuara and Tyler Davis, the top tight ends under contract, had a combined 17 catches for 140 yards, but it shouldn't come as a surprise. The Packers addressed defense instead in the first round. Green Bay hasn't selected a wide receiver in the first round since taking Florida State's Javon Walker 20th overall in 2002, and hasn't used a first-round pick on a tight end since selecting Miami's Bubba Franks at number 14 in 2000. The last offensive player Green Bay drafted in the first round was Love himself, who went 26th overall in 2020 when the Packers traded up 4 spots to get him. He was the first offensive player the Packers had taken in the opening round since Mississippi State tackled Derek Sherrod at 32 overall in 2011. The Packers have 3 of the top 45 overall selections in the draft, giving them plenty of opportunities to boost a roster that has more holes than usual since salary cap issues prevented them from being very active on the free agent market. In a game heard on WHOW, Isaac Paredes had a career-high 5 RBIs, and the Tampa Bay Rays handed the Chicago White Sox their 8th straight loss with a 14-5 victory Thursday night. Brandon Lowe homered, tripled, and drove in 3 for Tampa in the opener of a 4-game series. Lowe, Yandy Diaz, Luke Raley, and Josh Lowe each had 3 hits as the AL East leaders bounced back nicely after they were shut out in back-to-back games by Houston. The Rays have scored an MLB best 171 runs and launched 51 homers in their first 26 games. They collected 16 hits. Shane McClanahan pitched 5 innings of 2-run ball in the win. He struck out 5 and walked 2. Sox ace Dylan Cease was tagged for 7 runs. 6 were earned and 9 hits in 4+ innings. Jake Berger homered for Chicago and drove in 2. Lennon Sosa stopped Chicago's scoreless streak at 25 innings with an RBI double in the second. The Sox were shut out in their previous 2 games in Toronto. The Rays improved to 4-0 against the Sox. They swept them in a 3-game set in Florida last weekend. Tampa Bay ended its scoreless drought at 20 innings when it scored 3 runs in the second. Paredes singled in Brandon Lowe and scored on Rayleigh's 2-run double. Pedro Griffel was ejected in the 8th inning. He said he was contesting the time he had to make a challenge. White Sox shortstop Tim Anderson and infielder Hanser Alberto will join AAA Charlotte Wednesday for rehab assignments. Anderson, a 2-time All-Star and the 2019 AL batting champ, got hurt on April 10th at Minnesota. Yohan Moncada is dealing with a bulging disc in his lumbar spine that is impinging on nerves, causing pain in his hips and limiting his mobility. He hasn't appeared in a game since April 9th. Hahn said Moncada might be ready for a rehab assignment in the next couple of weeks. Eric Hosmer and Nelson Velasquez hit back-to-back homers, and Dansby Swanson added his first of the season to help the Cubs top the Padres 5-2 Thursday. Manny Machado homered for the Friars, who had won 5 of 7. Hayden Wesneski worked the first 5 innings for Chicago, which took the 3-game series after going 1-3 against the Dodgers last weekend. The right-hander allowed 4 hits, including Machado's solo shot in the second. He had 3 strikeouts and a walk. Hosmer and Velasquez gave the Cubs the lead for good with consecutive homers off Seth Lugo in the bottom of the second inning. Chicago heads to Miami tonight, sending Marcus Stroman to the mound opposite Jesus Luzardo for the Marlins. Alec Burleson and Paul DeYoung homered. Miles Michaelis went 6 1/3 innings, and the Cardinals beat the Giants 6-0 Thursday to avoid a 4-game sweep. Michaelis scattered 4 hits, 2 walks, struck out 6, and ended the Giants' 5-game winning streak. With 1 out in the top of the 7th, Burleson sent Logan Webb's 2-2 fastball over the right field wall to break a scoreless tie. Later in the inning, Tommy Edman legged out an infield single to second base to drive in another run. He initially was ruled out at first, but the call was overturned upon video review. Jack Flaherty, an LA native, returns home to begin a 3-game series against the Dodgers tonight. Flaherty has a 1.5 ERA in 3 career starts at Dodger Stadium. Get sports anytime from your computer or mobile device at DeWittDailyNews.com.
This is staff meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki with your regional radio forecast. High temperatures reach up to 66 today under overcast skies, northerly winds 8 to 15 miles per hour. Partly cloudy skies tonight, lows level off around 45. Scattered thunderstorms likely tomorrow, highs level off around 62. Overcast skies. Hear weather twice an hour or online anytime at DeWittDailyNews.com. Currently, it's 50.
Hello again, everyone. This is Stu Ellis.